Good morning.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It is Monday, March 9th. It's only 8:30 in the morning where I am today, beautiful Elgin, Illinois. I am joined by Miss Hannah Hill out in South Carolina. Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning, Bill.
And I'm doing well, thank you. And the one, the only Kostas Moros out in beautiful Southern California. Morning, Kostas.
Good morning, Bill.
All right. So let's go over what we're talking about today before we get the orders list. We had a conference on March 6th, everyone. And of course, we got, as Hannah calls it, the group of 5 cases. So we are paying careful attention today for Ducan v. Bonta, challenge to California's magazine ban, been kicking around for about a decade now. Gators Customs Guns versus State of Washington, best name in the business right now. Case that's coming out of Washington State. It's about a year and a half old. Then we got one that Hannah's pulling for today. That is NAGR v. Lamont, challenge to Connecticut's assault weapon ban. We got Viramontes v. Cook County, a case that everyone's been asking about out here. That's a challenge to Cook County, Illinois' assault weapon ban. And then we also got Grant v. Higgins. That is also a challenge to Connecticut's assault weapon ban. I believe a companion case at one point with NAGR. What you guys do? Have a divorce or something like that and decide you need to go on your own way? Anna?
No, ours was there first. So
yeah, no,
I don't know how ours came around. I wasn't working for SAF at the time.
Yeah. So when Ducan, how many years have you been practicing law, Kostas?
I became a lawyer in 2015. I started in gun law in 2019, thanks to Freedom Week. And here's the order list, by the way.
All right,
and let's see if we got anywhere.
Here we go.
No grant in Ducan. Let's see if there's a denial in Ducan.
No Gators.
Nothing on Ducan again.
Okay.
Let's go through all the highlights. Viramontes, nothing. Let me check if there's a per curiam or anything. And not in our case. Somebody wrote a dissent from a different case. Okay. Mandamus denied. Let me see if there's a... Did you check Grant already?
Oh, I can't remember if I did or not.
Grant.
Oh, it's always interesting.
Grant is a hard one to check because
it's
all the other ones.
No Grant.
Because they say granted or
Right.
Yeah, nothing on Grant.
No Grant.
LaFave. Let me check LaFave. This is the most exciting part for our viewers.
This is it. This is where we all wait on bated breath.
LaFave got denied. Damn it.
What did? Which one?
LaFave v. Fairfax County. It's a sensitive places case.
That was denied.
That's interesting. Why didn't they hold it? Let me double check what the question presented was on that.
I haven't seen Viramontes pop up.
I guess we should have known it was going to be. Wait. Actually, no, that's a different case. Let me check. Make sure I have the right case.
Yeah, because my question is going to be with Wolford out there already. Why don't you just sit on it and wait for that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Kimberly LaFave. Let me check the docket number. I'm trying to see what the question presented was. Maybe it was a weird one, and that's why they denied it. But I don't know for sure.
So for those of you just tuning in right now, welcome to WGL AM. Monday, March 9th, orders list came out right on time. We have been through the group of 5 cases, as Hannah likes to call it. We have not seen Ducan, Gators, Lamont, Viramontes, or Grant v. Higgins on the orders list at all, which means, yes, the can is getting kicked down the road again. But we're going to talk here in a few minutes about why the can may be getting kicked down the road. Hannah and I were geeking out a little bit before we went live. We both kind of anticipated this today a little bit. So this is not as disappointing as it has been other weeks. And we'll explain here as we go through the program this morning, because I always bring extra stuff, because if all of a sudden we were done, like, okay, we got nothing, goodbye everyone, then you guys aren't really getting anything out of this. So we gotta, gotta educate, right? right now, everyone, our next conferences will be March 20th or March 27th. So any of the cases that didn't get a thumbs up or a thumbs down today will be probably in all likelihood continued to one of those two dates. Hannah, anything that stands out to you right now, or you and I both kind of talked about this a little?
I think, I mean, obviously the DC Court of Appeals ruling on their mag ban threw a monkey wrench, and now we have a slightly different set of facts. Now, a slightly different prospect on the horizon. So there was a lot of reason for the court to punt today and give more time if those developments are going to materialize, before the end of the term. Give it a little bit more time. And honestly,
More percolation.
more.
More percolation. Well, that's you bring up a good point. And Kostas, I'm sure you got a chance to check this out too. Benson versus the United States. The DC Court of Appeals struck down District of Columbia's magazine ban. United States Department of Justice had jumped in on that also.
Yeah, they decided not to defend it, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they deserve a lot of credit for that, by the way, because the Biden Department of Justice was one of the prosecutors there, right? And you had DC and the Biden DOJ prosecuting. And then under the current administration, the DOJ pulled an about face and said, actually, no, your back ban's unconstitutional. And they backed out, leaving DC as the sole prosecutor. So major props.
Yeah, and it sends a signal to the court too. It's like a permission structure for the court that's basically like an amicus brief in support of our side when they decide to drop out.
Have either one of you had a chance to get through that opinion yet?
I did a thread on it on
yeah. What'd you think, Kostas? I went through it yesterday, did a video on it yesterday, and got it out yesterday afternoon. I thought it was a very well written opinion. I thought it took a very systematic kind of compartmentalized approach to it. What do you think?
Yeah, what I think I posted about what was striking about it was how simplistic and straightforward it was. Yeah. It was like, yeah, of course they're arms. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Like it was very simple. Whereas you read the the Ducan ruling and others like it from the First and Second Circuits, and they're so convoluted and they bend over backwards. And
the mental gymnastics they will do to try to get to the result they want. And here's a court, and it almost seemed, and I'm going to ask both of you this. Did you get the impression that the court kind of wanted to uphold the ban? Literally, regrettably, was like, the case law is just really clear here, and there's nothing we can do.
Sometimes you stumble into judges like that. I've become very pessimistic on judge. I know I've become very pessimistic on judges because most of them are very partisan. But occasionally you get some that just do their job. We had that in, and I'm not saying she would have ruled for us on all issues, but we had a Biden judge in our non-resident carry case. And she basically did the same thing on wait times, on non-resident carries. She was not a fan of us, I'll tell you at the hearing. Yeah. But she did the right thing. She just did her job, and that's too rare, and it's disappointing that it's so rare. So I was happy to see that. And this was also a weird partisan split, where you had a Bush judge against us, and then you had a Trump judge and an Obama judge with us. However, I will note that from what I've understood about this court, it's a very difficult process to appoint judges to it. It's very convoluted and less partisan than normal. So the president who appointed them is even less of an indication than normal of how they'll rule.
See, I didn't know that because this is not a federal court, even though it is DC.
It is a federal court. It's not a circuit court, right? Like, because they're appointed by the president.
DC is not actually a state, and I understood this was DC's version of state courts. But
it's
not
state, that is exactly what it is. Yeah, the analogy I use, the analogy, I had so many people the last 2 days over at Gat Guns for factory shoot come up and want to know, this is it. And I was like, no, it's not really what we're looking for, but it's close. And the analogy I use is if the Third Circuit had said one thing and the Illinois State Supreme Court had said a different thing, what we have is a difference of opinions. That is for sure. What we don't have, though, is an actual circuit split.
Right. And we kind of look in practice. I would argue we kind of do, even though it's not an official circuit split. Because let's say there's an en banc process with this court, so we'll see if that happens. But assuming it doesn't and the ruling sticks around, then DC can't enforce its mag ban, even if the DC circuit says it's okay. So doesn't that count as kind of like a circuit split? It's the same.
It's an inter-district split. Is what we call that. Yeah.
Like, how close does it have to be in order to count with the Supreme Court? Is it a territory question? Is it just, hey, we have 5 cases where the precedents all go this way, and then we have one case, regardless of where it goes the other way, we have all 6 on our desks. Does that count? Is that what they're looking for?
And it's a unique situation because, like, in the Ninth Circuit, if the Ninth Circuit says magazine bans are fine, but the state of Idaho Supreme Court says they're not, then you can't enforce it in the state of Idaho. But this is the DC Circuit is in the peculiar position where the circuit and the state court are the exact same territory. So in effect, what the DC Court of Appeals rules is a DC Circuit ruling. So again, maybe
Right.
I'm just trying to talk our way into this, but no, it's not an official circuit split. But I would argue to the Supreme Court in supplemental briefing, for anyone listening who might be doing that in practice it is like a circuit split.
And for the record, none of us are advocating for DC statehood. I want to
No, absolutely.
No,
I don't even like that California's a state. So
There are a few New
good
England
point.
states I would advocate for reducing the back to colony
Yeah.
status.
Yeah, well, Hawaii would be the first on the list to go because they don't really want to sign. They don't really want to play by the rules anyway.
Yeah, and I'm always a little slightly sympathetic to that argument too. But
So
it is
let me
what it
ask-
is.
Kostas and Hannah, let me ask both of you though. Do you think that perhaps, and I know this is really speculative, but on Friday, as the magazine ban cases, the platform ban cases came up, do you think somebody probably mentioned, hey, we just got this ruling here out of our own backyard in Benson? Do you think that
Yeah.
at least caught their attention and maybe gave them pause for a moment on it?
Yes, for one good reason. It's DC, and they were literally sitting in DC, so this affects them in a personal way.
Kostas, what do you think?
I'd love to think the Supreme Court pays that close attention to stuff, but I just don't know that they do. I mean, we've had week after week now with relists. So am I prepared to say that they relisted it this week because they heard about this? No, I think they were going to relist it anyway.
I do agree with that.
Yeah. By the way,
That's
quick
probably-
update. LaFave was a Virginia case, the one that got denied, where they challenged a ban on carrying in parks. And the court below ruled that the ban was okay. Wait, here. The Fourth Circuit rejected plaintiff's Second Amendment challenge on the basis that 4 preschools exist on a tiny portion of the parklands. So that's the one that petitioned for review. I haven't looked at all the details. Maybe there's other problems with it, but it's disappointing they denied that when they're about to address Wolford.
Was it interlocutory or merits?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Let me check.
Let me ask you this quick, Kostas. I'm out here in Illinois right now, and everyone's also asking about the Schoenthal case, which is kind of slow rolling. It took Illinois a while to get their response brief in and all that. Don't you think Schoenthal is a case that they're going to sit on though and wait for Wolford?
I would hope so, but again, we just saw a Parks case. Granted, I haven't addressed Hannah's point of whether it's interlocutory.
Yeah.
But so we'll see. I hope they sit on it. The problem with Wolford is there's a universe, maybe the most likely result, where they just issue a very narrow ruling where they say, yeah, vampire rule's bad, but we're not saying much of anything else useful. The John Roberts special.
Right. You talk all the time about per curiam rulings, right?
Mhm.
Which we don't often see.
I
although
talk
you
too
see
much
one-
about them relative
I
to
don't
how
know. I
rare they
didn't
are.
say you talk too much about them, but I was going through the rest of the cases they got left on the docket this year for oral arguments, and you want to know a case that should have got a per curiam ruling?
Which
It's
one's that?
the goddamn birthright citizenship case. Because that issue, when you boil that issue down, the issue is this: can the president suspend a constitutional right through executive order? That's the issue.
Isn't there an argument, and I'm not saying it'll prevail, but like Amy Swore and others have written law review articles about what birthright citizenship was intended as, but I guess you could say that's not the point. The president can't do it by executive order.
No. Amy Swearer about what the 14th Amendment was created for and how it's currently being used is absolutely dead on right. What we created the 14th Amendment and how it's being used today is radically different. Is there a legitimate debate about revising the 14th Amendment? Yes, there is. And we have methods for that. It's difficult. It was meant to be difficult because our founding fathers set it up to be that way. But for the president to come in and issue an executive order and say, from this date forward, anyone born in the United States, the foreign aliens are not American citizens. Listen, someday you get a President Gavin Newsom or President J.B. Pritzker. Which constitutional amendment you think they would suspend by executive order?
Sure. No, sure. I think that's exactly right. I think the only reason that got cert instead of a per curiam is because it's the president, and they want to be deferential. I mean, there's a lot of cases. Ducan and similar hardware cases should be per curiams. They won't be because they're too controversial, I think. Gardner v. Maryland, which we're getting a response in supposedly this week. They got some extensions, but So that one, we straight up said in our amicus brief for staff, like, this should be a per curiam. It's very straightforward. Alan Beck just filed his non-resident case in Hawaii. Because they don't issue permits. They're one of the last states that hasn't given up on that. And in his complaint, he listed about 80 travelers exceptions laws. Yeah, it's the most complete list I've seen. He just listed all of them out.
When Alan gets rolling on something, he gets rolling.
Yeah, so I think that's an issue where they should just issue a per curiam. But I don't know what makes them decide to do that or not. I mean, I've been saying that Ducan should have been a per curiam a while ago, pretty much along the lines that at this point they could just issue a ruling saying what the DC Court of Appeals has said. Go read their ruling. We're done. We agree with that.
I could write the per curiam opinion for the birthright citizenship case on a cocktail napkin.
Sure.
Because they would be like this. No, and that would be the end of it. If they let me, I'd probably drop a F you, no, and that would be my per curiam. 18 United States Code 922 G1 coming back to life again. The 75 petitions or so that were already rejected this year, but we already got on the March. We had 3 on the March 6th conference. We got another 6 already on the March 20th conference. This is an issue that is not going away.
Well, it's the most common kind of law to enforce. Do you know what the 3 were? I haven't checked, but I'm sure they probably.
I don't, Kostas, because I got to be honest with you, my head starts spinning with these 922 G1 cases.
If no response was requested, they were denied.
Yeah. One of the things, if you file your petition, the other side asks to waive, and the court sets for conference without the other side, you are DOA. Okay, it is not going to happen. Hannah.
Yes.
States v. Cokerham. You actually tipped me off on this on a post where what we have here is the respondent has a previous felony conviction under Mississippi law for failure to pay child support. Now, I'm not a big fan of deadbeat dads, not a fan of them at all. But he was, and then of course the failure to pay and the felony was like 20 years old. And now we have a challenge there. And you kind of caught wind of that case. And what was it that really sparked your interest about it?
Well, you can subscribe to the Department of Justice's email alerts when it comes to amicus briefs and cert petitions filed. So I got it in my email. And it's the first time that signing up has actually been worth it, or one of the few. The rest of it isn't worth a hill of beans. But no, this was fascinating because this is a 922 G1 case. This is the misdemeanor prohibitor, right? Where if you're convicted of a penalty with a potential maximum crime, not an imposed penalty, potential maximum penalty of over a year, then automatically under the federal law, this particular federal law, you are a prohibited person. And so there's a lot of abuse that happens with that. A lot of people are prohibited persons federally that don't actually even know it, and the states aren't enforcing it that way. And so that's something that you see the left in every town getting their lawmakers to try and close that gap, and you'll see parallel legislation filed. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to come after this large class of people who are not violent offenders, who have minor things like child support issues. Like I think in South Carolina, one thing that will get you this is if you put up the wrong kind of deer fence without authorization, that will get you this. And a lot of states will do this because a lot of lawmakers will increase judicial discretion. Well, that sounds like a good thing, right? Increase judicial discretion for how they can handle crime. Well, hello, by doing that, you suddenly expanded the pool of prohibited persons, and most people didn't even know it. And most lawmakers, when they voted on it, didn't even know it. Sorry, this is one of the things that one of the worst parts of the federal prohibitor in my book. So I'm very glad to finally see this land on the Supreme Court's desk. I could just kind of wish it had better facts.
Yeah, that's how it usually goes. Did we lose Bill, by the way? I think he's frozen.
I think we did.
Oh, well, we'll host. What do you want to talk about? No, so I think what the tack the government has taken in these sorts of cases is in a bunch of petitions, they basically told the Supreme Court, hey, we have a rights restoration process coming up. So just deny all cases and we'll take care of it. And as frustrating as that is, I'm happy the process is going to exist, but as frustrating as that is, it's exactly the kind of thing John Roberts loves. Like, oh, we don't have to do work. Perfect. Let's give this a try. And then people can complain about it if they don't like it, you know?
Well, and he also kind of got this running tally in his mind, doesn't he? How controversial controversial are we going to be in this particular term? And so it's not just gun rights cases he's thinking about those birth rights.
Right. Right.
And all of that. So this was an interesting ask though, because they didn't actually ask necessarily for cert in this one. They said, y'all taken Hamani
Yeah.
and that may impact this. So if it's relevant, oh, there you are, Bill.
Hotel Wi-Fi. It's time to re-sign in. It's the new morning. I had to re-log in. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, everyone.
We were about to announce that Washington Bill is now fired, and we're going to be the new Washington.
Hey,
gun law.
listen, you guys are doing a better job than me. So, obviously your internet's more dependable than Holiday Inn, Elgin, Illinois. So,
no way. But yeah, we were just kind of going over what this case is asking for, and the fact that it's not necessarily even asking for cert. They're saying you've got Hamani. So if that's going to be relevant, just GVR it afterwards. Consider cert after you rule on Hamani. So, which is an interesting tactic.
I actually think. Listen, and Kostas and I talked about this once before. I think it's an interesting tactic when you have a case that's kind of on point. Rush those petitions up and just literally ask for the GVR, because you're not really asking the court to do the heavy lifting. They're going to do the heavy lifting on another case. It's like, just hang on to it and punt it once you issue your ruling. I don't know if it's going to be persuasive I don't know what's persuasive to the Supreme Court.
Well, Kostas was just pointing out that what's persuasive is giving John Roberts an excuse to not work.
Right. I was noting how the government said in a bunch of their 922G responses, hey, we have a rights restoration process coming up. Just deny and we'll take care of this. And, that's what I think is happening.
The arguments in Hamani, where how many of them, and Roberts was one of them, like, well, are you saying that we got to do like a drug by drug analysis of this stuff? It's like, yeah, that's what courts do. They actually do legal analysis on crap,
It's just that was such a crazy argument to me, because there's only you could go through every drug, but really there's a dozen or maybe 24 popular drugs that would come up often, and so what's the big deal about that? Like, we've had how many different sorts of gun cases? He doesn't seem bothered by all the bans California does, right? But a couple of cases where they have to say, is weed dangerous, is heroin dangerous? Some are going to be easier than others, by the way,
Right.
So I didn't understand
and then
that.
Question about, drugs can be dangerous, but do they make the person dangerous, or are they dangerous to their health?
Right.
So, and I'm not a drug expert or anything, but there are certain drugs that your doctor will look you right in the face and say, hey, don't do that. That's not good for you. Is it going to make you a crazy, dangerous person? No, but it could take years off of your life. Or you could.
If it was just about health, then I guess McDonald's should land you on the 922G list. Like, fast food. You're a dangerous person.
Burger King versus the ATF. That's going to be a case someday.
I had a big arch. So that means I should never have a gun again.
So listen, you guys want to know, here's a petition, because I always go through and I take a look at, okay, what's new to the party, right? Here's a new one. I don't think it has a chance in hell of going anywhere. It's called Taylor versus the United States. Here's the issue. You ready for this? It's whether a handgun affixed with a machine gun conversion device constitutes an arm under the Second Amendment's plain text, thus requiring the government to justify the machine gun possession prohibition under 922-0 by demonstrating that it is consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. For all the big 2A issues that we have before the Supreme Court that we can't get them to argue on, I just have a hard time seeing them take a Glock switch case. What do you guys think?
It's like there's this big windmill sitting out there. And so many people in the gun.
Well, it's because it's the criminal case, right? So that's I mean, the answer it is an arm, like, obviously, because based on what they said in Heller, it's something you take into your hands to cast out or strike out another. Yes, it's a gun with a Glock switch is an arm. I think they'd probably have an easier time under dangerous and unusual based on what the Supreme Court has said. But what's actually going to happen here is the Supreme Court won't answer any of that. They're just going to deny cert.
They're just going to kick that one to the curb. Exactly.
I mean, if the Supreme Court's unwillingness to take this issue isn't necessarily good faith. They don't even go necessarily to the dangerous and unusual thing, in my opinion. Because if you read what it said about Heller, they just did what always seemed to me to be very illogical carve out for that portion of the NFA. So obviously, well, no, it's not obvious. You didn't do an analysis, and honestly, the analysis is not as simple as, well, obviously. But even the Heller court wouldn't strike down the machine gun law. I don't see the Roberts court doing
Oh,
that.
no. I mean, the court's better now than it was under Heller. I mean, all the Heller dicta that always gets cited, the irony about that always getting cited is it only exists because they needed to get Kennedy on board. So Justice Kennedy was very on the fence. He was kind of with it. He agreed it was an individual right, but he was super concerned about all these other things. So they basically had to Justice Scalia had to insert all that crap about, and we don't cast doubt on longstanding regulations, machine guns in schools, blah, blah, blah. That was all to get Kennedy on board.
Really?
So
Okay.
yeah, that's the history of
Oh,
that.
he did. I thought he
Sure.
he filed his own dissent in Heller.
No, Kennedy was on our side. Justice Kennedy was on our side, and Heller narrowly. It was Stevens, Breyer.
Yeah.
I forget the other two who were on the court at the time. It wasn't Sotomayor yet. I don't remember.
No.
But anyways, there was 4 liberals against us, and it was the 5 conservatives. But Kennedy barely got there, and Kennedy's also rumored to be the reason why they didn't grant cert for so long until Kavanaugh got on the court, because after Heller was basically as far as he was willing to go. So
Really?
yeah.
Interesting.
All
All
right.
right.
Basically, the Heller court was better than today, but not better enough to give this one a shot. And that does seem to be accurate. I mean, I don't see John Roberts definitely.
Yeah.
If you want to strike that down, you got to do it through Congress.
Pretty much. Yeah.
For all of you tuning in right now, nearly 500 of you, thank you very much. If you're here a little late to the party, the group of 5, Ducan, Viramontes, Grant v. Higgins, NAGR v. Lamont, the Gators guns case, they have all not been listed on the orders list today, which means they will be relisted. Our next 2 potential conferences are going to be March 20th or March 27th. For the 3 of us, the next time we might be able to get together will be Monday, March 23rd. I'm proud to announce I will actually be in Seattle, Washington that day, since I've represented 2 time zones in the last 2 weeks, neither of which were mine.
And then they switch times on you too.
And then they do clock ahead on me also, man.
It's brutal this year. I'm not
us
gonna
West
lie.
Coast guys, us West Coast. So this is the thing: when you're a West Coast guy and you go to the East Coast, those mornings suck. And when you're an East Coast person, you come out to the West Coast, those evenings get really rough, don't they?
Yeah, man.
You ought to seen Hannah down in Vegas last year, man. She was like retiring at like 7 o'clock at night.
I'm such an old lady, man.
Hey, real
Not
quick,
there for it.
Real quick, if we got any viewers out here in the People's Republic of Illinois, do want you to know that we'll be at Gat Guns tonight in East Dundee, and then heading down to Bartonville, Bloomington, Quincy, and finishing up down in East Alton, just outside of beautiful East St. Louis, Illinois. Excited to get down there. Had a great time at Factory Shoot, guys. There's this gun club out here in East Dundee called Gat Guns, and it's probably the largest indoor gun range I've ever been in. They got 50 and 75-yard rifle ranges indoors, and
Nice.
they are pushing enough volume here that they do a little mini SHOT Show here in their own building. And it's called Factory Shoot, and all the reps show up with all their new stuff, the new stuff that they could sell in Illinois. So it's not, smaller.
a bunch of super soakers, basically.
Yeah. A lot of super soakers, couple
Get a dart gun or two in there.
I think they got a high capacity slingshot now that Pritzker's talking about banning. But it's really cool because you go to the counter and you check it out and you're like, oh, I want to try that. And they're like, great, we'll run it back to the range. You run around, grab some ammo, boom, our RSOs, range safety officers right there, hands you the firearm, you rip a few rounds off, see if you like it. If you like it, you go back out, buy the thing right there. 3-day waiting period here in Illinois, so you come back 3 days later and pick it up. It's pretty darn cool.
Nice.
Yeah, really cool. And Nicole over there, I was supposed to be in Streeter tonight, and the folks down, I won't name the name of the gun club, but you all know who you are. They forgot to actually put the event on their bulletin boards and promote it all together. And so last week we found out that we had 0 signups because they didn't promote it. And Nicole, the manager over at Gat Guns, like, I can put a program together. This was 6 days ago, and they got 133 people registered for that program in 6 days. So Gat Guns, man, they produce over there. Check them out, East Dundee.
Yeah. I
Go
need to
to-
make. I've never been to Illinois. I need to make it.
Never
out
been
there
to Illinois?
sometime. No.
Here, Kostas, Illinois is, it reminds me a lot of my state. It doesn't have the natural beauty. It's really flat here, but the people are wonderful. But it's just like my state in the sense that you got two counties that just screw it up for everybody else in the state.
Right. Right.
And once you get outside of Cook and Lake County and start heading down in the central part of the state, down to the southern part of the state, very red-blooded American conservative state. But you got this big, huge population base up here in the north part of the state, Cook County, and I will tell you that right now they're in the primary season. So I've been watching a lot of political ads out here, and everybody, you could be running for a local school district, and all you're saying is I will fight Trump. Every ad is I'm going to fight Trump, and they all make it seem like the problems they have here in Illinois just were created in the last 14 months when Trump was in White House.
I just saw that, not to get off topic, but I just saw Newsom tweeting about that. He's like, the gas prices are up because of Trump's war in Iran. For the last several years, California gas prices have always been no higher than $5 a gallon. I'm like, and you're bragging about that, you idiots?
Yeah, it's
like
not even that bad here
$5
in
a
Illinois.
day.
Not
My
even that
God.
bad here.
I mean, and it's really funny how state and local politicians, federal politics is always just sexier than state and local. So they can actually get elected talking about issues that they will never actually have to vote on.
Ever
Mhm.
touch. No.
Mhm.
And honestly, both parties are really bad.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, both sides are bad. I guarantee both sides are bad. When you're in the state like Illinois, you're getting one.
Mhm.
But if you go to a state like Oklahoma, you're probably going to get exactly the opposite message and just get that repeated as well. So
Right.
I'm not a big fan of states that are totally red, totally blue. I actually think the yin to the yang is a good thing. A little balance, probably a good
Well,
thing.
the dirty secret about a red state is
What's
that
that?
they still have both the conservatives and the liberals going against each other. They just all go by the term Republican. So single party state is not what a lot of people think it is.
It's a lot of truth to that. A lot of truth. All right, listen, we're going to wrap this up. Kostas, any final thoughts on what we did and did not see today? Any things that you're going to be really interested in seeing in the next couple of weeks before we get back for another conference?
Sure, I'm going to continue praying that they don't relist Ducan, but they almost certainly will, and the other hardware cases. It would be a very good sign if they don't relist them. One bit of good news today that we didn't get anything was that I know some parties are planning to file supplemental briefs because of the DC Court of Appeals case, so now this gives them a chance to actually do that.
Good point.
I don't know if that'll make a difference, but it's something, to let the Supreme Court know about in case we're looking for anything that'll change the status quo, because right now the status quo seems to be a denial with a dissent, that if history is any guide, that's what we're plowing towards. I don't know what would be taking a dissent very long, because if you're Justice Thomas or Alito or whoever else, like, wouldn't you just say, look at my Snope dissent? Like, what else is there to say at this point? But
yeah, you cut and paste from it.
Yeah, and the other possibility is they're just relisting because they're waiting for a circuit court decision, but we'll have to see. Hopefully the Third Circuit can rush out that Cheeseman ruling and give us a real circuit split after we've had this appetizer in DC.
Kostas, everyone around here has been asking because they got Pika out here. And the funny thing is like, God, it's been 3 years. When are we going to get an answer? I was like, 3 years? You want to talk to the people in California about the magazine ban and see how long that's been?
That's the thing. I started in this field because of Freedom Week, and I was so excited. I'm like, I'm going to get to work on Ducan. Then a few years passed, and I'm like, how am I still working on Ducan? And now I've left the firm entirely, and Ducan is still going. I'm not even at that firm anymore. So, and I wish all my former colleagues the best, because it would really suck after everything just to have the Supreme Court deny it. CRPA doesn't get its fees back, and then a year later, maybe they do a hardware case. But see, when they do that, you don't get to go back and say, hey, can I have my fees? Or can I, and by the way, they're even worse than fees. Forget about who cares about CRPA's fees, I guess, but you should care about the fact that all these Freedom Week magazines, if mandate issues, will have to be turned in, shipped out of state, whatever else. And we tried to make that point to the court. So I really hope they're keeping that in mind. We'll have to see.
Hannah, any closing thoughts you have about what we saw today or what you're going to be looking for over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I'm looking for two things. For one, I'm looking to see how quickly they relist them, if they do at all. And the second thing is whether or not they start making movements to go en banc with the DC Court of Appeals case. That is the only thing that has the possibility of changing the current status quo with the Supreme Court, unless the Third Circuit surprises us all. So as long as we can give them an excuse of a possibility to keep holding the cases back instead of denying them, then I'm going to consider that a major win.
Because we have those two 18, 20-year-old cases, I think, that are still out there, and they got conferenced on November 14th. We haven't heard from them yet, right? They just...
It's so weird that those got held.
Somewhere.
It's so weird that those seemingly got held, I guess, for Himani, when a bunch of drug cases did not get held for Himani. So who knows what they're doing with those.
Really surprising me with the prohibitors it's willing to take on. I didn't expect the drug prohibitor to be the one they took before the nonviolent felon prohibitor. I thought,
well, it's because the federal government asked for it. That's what it comes down to. Yeah.
True.
What it comes down to.
Still though.
All right. Well, listen, for those of you who tuned in at the last minute, thank you very much for joining us. Good news, you might be late, but you didn't miss anything other than a really exhilarating conversation between myself, Hannah, and Kostas. We got nothing on the 5 cases today. So they're all going to be relisted. We don't know if they're going to be relisted. They could be relisted for March 20th. They could be relisted for March 27th. Depending on what happens, we might be back with another. We will be back for another WGL AM on March 23rd. If I can convince Kostas and Hannah to join us, so that would be totally awesome. But I'll do that off the record. All right. Final thoughts, guys. Hannah, anything else you want to add before we roll here today?
Honestly, I'm more excited than I have a right to be. I'm glad they didn't say no. So, while we're still alive, we're still hoping.
This is something that I used to belong to this men's support group called the Good Guy Club. And one of the things we oftentimes said was the absence of bad sometimes equals good.
That plus the news we got out of DC means maybe it's a little bit better than it has been in the previous weeks.
Hey, real quick, before we roll, Hannah, I want to talk to you about something here publicly, because some word broke last week about a really important person to NAGR, a person who I'm very fond of as well, Barry Arrington. And I've talked about Barry on the channel, and I have said that Barry Arrington is one of the best brief writers in the business. We got a little bit of bad news a couple of weeks ago, but it really is good news for the entire nation. So why don't you tell everyone where Barry Arrington is headed off to?
Barry is going to work for the Second Amendment Division at the Department of Justice. So our loss is the nation's gain. He has been a one-man army to us. He's a prolific brief writer. And honestly, in my unbiased opinion, he's the best in the business. And honestly, if they can't make it work with Barry, they can't make it work at all. So while we are going to miss him and we're going to feel his loss so much, thrilled to see exactly what the federal government can do with Barry Arrington writing their briefs.
Amen to that. No, he is a brilliant legal mind. He's incredibly passionate about Second Amendment issues. He's a fantastic author of briefs. Mm-hmm. And my advice to DOJ is just get out of his way.
Yeah.
And let Barry go do Barry, because what Barry does is pretty darn good. Barry, if you're watching out there, best of luck to you. We're super excited for what you're going to get to do for the entire nation. And the entire country is going to benefit from Barry Arrington's work, no doubt about it. Kostas, you want the last word today?
Not really. Well, first of all, congrats to Barry. I'm very excited. What I'm hearing, of course, is any federal gun laws that get defended, that's on National Association of Gun Rights now.
Right, we're not supposed to take it that way.
To be clear, my understanding is he's going to be in the Civil Rights Division, so it wouldn't even be his job to defend gun laws, just to attack them. So I will be texting him suggestions regularly. I'm sure he'll appreciate that because he won't be busy enough. But yeah, congrats to Barry. But that's all I have. Hopefully we get some good news eventually in one of these cases.
Yeah, in America, I want you to know that Barry's making a big sacrifice for all of you, because obviously he loves his freedoms. He lived in Texas, which is part of the United States, but now he's moving to Northern Virginia. So he's really ticking one for the team there. So Barry, best of luck to you, my friend. Okay, guys, listen, thanks so much for joining us. Hannah from South Carolina, Kostas from Southern California. I'm out here just west of Chicago. We'll be back in a couple of weeks for WGL AM. Hopefully we'll actually have something to talk about. Guys, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks
Thanks,
for having us. Always fun.
All right.